Good Monday afternoon. It's Jerry Miller. Welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's great to connect with you guys through the I Love CVille network. We're live across Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. Today, our guest, Stephen Davis, the president of the Community Investment Collaborative. We've had a lot of the small business owners and entrepreneurs who've matriculated through the CIC. We've had a board member in Lee Elberson on the program, who's also the Chief Executive Officer of Claiborne Education. And there was one common denominator after all these shows. Every guest we had was saying something positive about this gentleman, Stephen Davis. Also, one of my colleagues in the Macklin building, Lloyd Snook, who's going to be on Charlottesville City Council next year, he had positive things to say about Stephen Davis. Eventually, you hear enough in a small town about one person, you get on Facebook Messenger, and you reach out to the guy, and you give him an invitation to the I Love CVille Show, and he is so kindly obliged. He will be on the program in T-minus 45 seconds. First, let's give some love to some of our clients. We are an advertising agency at I Love CVille and VMV Brands. We have the most market share in the community, and we're lucky to work with a lot of great clients. Two of our favorites, Interstate Pest and Service Companies, and Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. First, let's start with Interstate. The business started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells, who has since passed away. In 1969, he used his personal truck around Charlottesville and payphones to build a company. Today, the business is 4 generations of family strong, has a Commonwealth-wide working footprint, and almost 100 employees on the roster. It's Interstate Pest and Service Companies, a home's best friend. We'll also thank Dr. Wagner for being on our roster, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back. Sports medicine, physical therapy, chiropractic care, Dr. Wagner and his team changing people's lives. Now, Judah Wickhauer, my friend, you're the director. Why don't we go to the studio camera and let's welcome Stephen Davis to the show. Stephen, thank you kindly for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Great. It's great to have you. It's an absolute pleasure. What makes you tick? Who is Stephen Davis? Passions, hobbies, and interests.
You asked me that like 5 minutes ago. I'm still figuring it out. I think what makes me tick, I really enjoy, helping people. I like helping people figure out how to do things better, whether that's, my day job in business, helping businesses and business owners start and grow their businesses, things I'm involved in the community, I used to work in politics, helping candidates run for office. All of those are about helping them do things better, because a lot of people have a lot of talent, a lot of passion that they're trying to create some change in the world, and they know what they want to do, they just don't know how to do it, and I like helping them figure out how to do it and how to do it better.
James Madison University graduate.
Correct, twice, double Duke.
Double Duke,
yep. Okay.
Passionate about this community.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some insight into childhood. Born and raised where?
I was born and raised in Dinwiddie County, Virginia, about 30.
The thriving metropolis.
The thriving metropolis of Dinwiddie County, Virginia, about 30 minutes south of Richmond, just outside of Petersburg, 2 hours or so from here. Born and raised until I went to JMU. Great community, so love it. Still have sisters live there, so great town.
Childhood, what was it like?
I think I got a good childhood. I had a great community around me, a lot of support, a lot of family, sports, involvement in things. I think fortunate and had a lot of opportunities to learn things in which I think I've tried to take and help others with as well.
Now you go from Dinwiddie County to Harrisonburg.
Yep.
James
Another
Madison.
thriving metropolis.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very similar to me. I grew up in Williamsburg.
Okay.
Same opportunities. Education was huge. Sports was huge. First kind of sense of freedom for me was going to Charlottesville to UVA.
Yep.
Same for you.
Yep. Same here.
Talk to me about that.
I think seeing like Dinwiddie's a small rural community. Somewhat of a bedroom community to Richmond, although probably less so today than it was when I last lived there. And just the opportunity to kind of be out to meet people from mostly Virginia, but all over as well. Obviously, just like most Virginia schools, met a lot of people from Virginia, a lot of people from New Jersey, and then getting to know and getting involved in things, student activities and that type of stuff as a college student kind of opened my eyes to a lot more things. I went to school and studied business and finance, but probably didn't spend as much time in my major as others might have liked. But I got involved in some student activities and realized I can learn just as much through actually doing things outside the classroom as I can from learning in. And while they go hand in hand and are very important, those two together are a central part of my education. And I think in college and as an undergrad, learned there was a whole nother field of folks who help people learn and grow while in college outside the classroom and student affairs and higher ed. And so I went from studying finance to then stuck around in JMU for grad school and got a master's in education for higher ed, so student affairs. So helping, how do students learn and grow outside the classroom? And, really enjoyed that. And it was a mix, that program was a mix of how students learn, counseling, and kind of management and program management. And between those and finance, all three have really come together for me in the last few years with CIC.
That is me in a lot of ways as well. So I was the kid growing up in our neighborhood who had the lawn care business. As opposed to cutting the yards myself, I recruited 3 or 4 of my buddies. I went knocking on the doors, secured the business. My buddies cut the lawn. I realized that a small slice of the pie was better than a large slice of nothing. So I would go and just got the practical knowledge. 14 years old, started bussing tables, then got into waiting tables, then got to UVA, and then at UVA was in the classroom, and it was so much like theoretical stuff, theory as opposed to tangible, and it almost turned me off a little bit. I thought I could learn more with getting my hands dirty and rolling up my sleeves and working for a small business as opposed to in the classroom. So I lost a little focus on the studies and had more focus on being in the business side of things. Throw this topic to you. Curriculums today, practical and tangible versus the theory-based that you see in a lot of undergrads. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Haven't been in college and especially undergrad in, more than 17 years or so, but you always need some of both. I think there's parts of me now that wishes I would have paid attention in a few different classes because, some of that theoretical piece could have been beneficial. And at the same time, I think higher ed has a lot of purposes. Increasingly, higher education is about helping kind of prepare the workforce, and I think that's important and critical to make sure we have the workforce needed for all of the businesses that we have in a community. But at the same time, I think you also need to prepare people to be citizens, and that requires things that aren't always immediately applied. Some of that liberal arts education is really important and broad-based and helping people not just learn the skills they need, but learn how to learn, because that'll help them no matter what they do next. So I think every school is different, from the UVAs and JMUs to the Piedmont Virginia Community College to all the different great schools around Virginia. It's just important to know why are you going to school, and that helps you determine what you need most.
A lot of people giving you some props right now. We have a message for you from Chad Underhill. He says, way to go, Stephen. You grew up in Dinwiddie with you. I played some baseball with you. Great to see you doing awesome stuff. Yeah. You're a very nice guy.
Threw a killer curveball at age 11, I think he did. So.
Sean Pendleton giving you props. Lauren Ryan giving you props. Scott Williams, hello, buddy. Welcome to the program, a CIC product. Glenda Howard, Brent Lillard, Lauren Linsky, James Watson watching the program. Gerard Smith watching the program. We have a couple of folks who have run for city council watching the show. Carolina Trejo, hello, welcome to the show. Scott Williams says, Stephen and CIC rock. So grateful for their support of the CVille entrepreneurial community. You're known in a lot of ways for two things in the community. You're known for CIC, and you're known for your ties with politics. Before we get to both, how do you go from JMU, a double Duke, to Charlottesville?
So when I was in grad school, I went straight to grad school, and my program was a higher education program. And since I was just out of undergrad and I was working basically as an administrator for the university while in grad school, they wanted you to look more, one of the advisors said, they want you to look more towards administrators as peers as opposed to students. And that was their way of saying don't party with the undergrads, even though you're a year removed. And so as a result of that and just other interests, I got involved in local politics. I had a roommate who ran for local office and did horribly, but it was a lot of fun and learned a lot of things. And we and got involved. It was 2003, kind of like 1 year ahead of a presidential campaign, kind of like right now, and got involved with one of the candidates running as a volunteer and organizing to get him on the ballot, and then finished grad school in 2004 and decided to go work on a campaign. Got hired by a group that trains organizers, went out and worked on a race in Michigan, just outside of Detroit, and then lost that race. It was a primary in August, and worked my way back towards Virginia. And that same roommate who had run for office the year before was managing a congressional campaign here in Charlottesville, and landed here and ended up working here on that campaign for the next few months. And so that was campaign number 2 in just a few months, and then didn't look back for about 4 or 5 years working on campaigns.
What's campaign life like?
A lot of adrenaline, a lot of work, lots of hours. When I was hired for CIC, one of the board members asked me, you don't have anything on your resume that looks quite like a startup. And I said, well, let me walk you through a campaign start. Let me walk you through a campaign start to finish. And a few minutes in, they got the point. But I think you get the last few campaigns I managed, I was hired by a candidate. They're just starting, and it's like a business. You have to figure out, you know what you need to do. You want to win on election day, and election day doesn't move. In a business, you can always push your goals back a month or a quarter or something, but election day doesn't move. It's a hard date, and so you have to build in an organization and raise the capital and figure out the marketing campaign and execute it all on one day. And so, whether small or large, they take on a life of their own. And unlike business, you can always grow market share in business, and you can be incredibly successful with a tiny piece of the market. Where in a campaign, you almost always need 50% plus one of the market on election day, not before election day and not after. So it's much more competitive, and it's cutthroat because the opposition stakes are often high, and it's at least a campaign is a zero-sum game. You either win or you lose. In business, it's rarely a zero-sum game. You can win and others can win. But all of the mechanics in there are the same. The marketing, the cash flow, the hiring and people. So much of everything is people. We're all humans. We all have needs. We all have challenges. And a lot of times we're doing well or not doing well, not because we don't know how, but because of the day we're having.
Sally Hudson rented an office from us on the second floor of this building as her campaign headquarters.
Awesome.
I watched her grow her team
Yep.
and grow her brand and her momentum. I was so impressed with how she balanced the folks on her team, how she got shoe leather on the street, shaking hands, kissing babies, how she was succinct with her message. How did you help the folks that you were managing embody some of those qualities as well?
Tough question of how. You kind of have to start with the person and really figure out, what they're looking to do. Why are they in this to begin with? A campaign, running for office in this country and the state and this community is a huge sacrifice. It requires a lot of people, but the candidate and their family most of all. You put your entire identity on the line out in front of people and often lose control of what people think of you, not because you did something, just because of the people you're running against are trying to do that. And so you have to get people started with making sure they really know why they're sacrificing, what gets them out of bed every morning to do it. And so so you start there, really know why they're doing it, and then you build in the rest of the things. There's just like, in every field, there's best practices for how you can get people thinking about tools and shortcuts and systems that you can put in place, and you just help them think about it and what drives them, and then respond to, the community and the market, as they go forward. The hardest part for a lot of folks is to really buy into one strategy or system and then execute it well. Because, it's so easy to be all over the place, and whether it's a campaign or a business, picking something and doing it well is what makes the difference.
Your passion for this is tangible. Was it difficult for you to get out of this and to get into CIC?
Well, so I did campaigns for about 4 or 5 years, and I did consulting work for another 5. Most of my clients were larger nonprofits, associations. A lot of them. I lived in Alexandria for part of that time before moving back to Charlottesville in 2009, and the clients came to us with, hey, we want to use this shiny new tool, social media, Facebook, Twitter, maybe you've heard of it, Jerry. And I would always say, well, what are you trying to accomplish with it? And they'd get a deer in the headlights look of, what? And so the same thing of what's driving you, what are you trying to do? The tactics and tools and strategies and all those come after you figure out what you want to do. And no matter which system you use, you still need to know how you're measuring success. And so from the campaigns to that world of mostly advocacy and fundraising and communications, and then in the middle of that, moving back to Charlottesville to business, I think it was kind of a natural progression. I was consulting for a while, but then I was looking to not only I enjoyed the consulting and helping people, but I was looking to build something too. And I was lucky to run into Wendy Brown, who is one of CIC's co-founders at CVille Coffee, which is owned by Tuan Nguyen, who's one of CIC's other co-founders in 2013. And they had just launched CIC and were looking to hire. And it seemed like a great mix of the skills and my passions of, kind of interested in changing the world, interest in kind of building something and running something, interest in business, is just that kind of perfect, mix. And then the educational piece and so forth that I had some background in. So it's just had checked all of those things. It's just a matter of which mix they would be at what time.
We have a lot of similarities. I'm going to try to unpack that because you're appealing to a lot of my senses are going off here. This portion of the program, guys, thanks to Anderson's Seafood, their fresh seafood market on Ivy Road, a great choice for the Christmas holidays. Gerard Smith, who ran for Board of Supervisors, says you're the absolute man. You're getting some props from Lauren Ryan as well. Lauren Ryan says, thanks for all you do. Thanks for the team. Thanks for everything that you've accomplished for the area. Carolina Trejo.
She works for us at CSC.
You rock, Stephen. Terry Cadell, welcome to the program. We have folks in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in Arlington watching. Neil Williamson, welcome to the program. Throw this to you. A lot of the stuff that you were kind of describing from my world of advertising is building a brand. You talk about KPIs. You talk about taking a brand to market. You talk about gaining momentum. Your mindset, how do you think what do you think the best aspect of what you do is for a small business owner? Is it the infrastructure you're providing? It's the guidance? It's the vision? Is it the consultation? Is it the counseling? Talk to us about that relationship you have with the small business owners and the entrepreneurs that come through CIC.
Yeah, I think at the core of what CIC do is about building a network of support. I used to say and still, believe it, owning your own business is very lonely, but it doesn't have to be, and that's what CIC comes in. We, everything we teach in our workshops and, other parts of our programs, you can learn online for free if you're good at Google. But it's easy to find those lessons. It's hard to apply them. And so our workshop is built around building a network of people who want to work together, who are all working on their own goals, and helping support each other as you do it. Challenge along the way, but support so that you can be successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do. And so that is the core of CIC. There's lots of technical pieces that we help folks learn along the way, help them connect to other resources throughout the community. But at the core, knowing that you're not alone, that you have someone that you can turn to as you're doing all of these things. None of us do all the things we need to do in our jobs or careers or life, perfectly. And those that don't do it perfectly all the time. And so you need help from time to time, and having those people that you can turn to help you push you just a little bit further. And that is the core of CIC.
Give us a success story.
There's so many. Every time I get asked this, it becomes hard to think of one. There's Ricky Tanabe over at Mochiko over in 5th Street Station, which is a Hawaiian food place.
Started the farmer's market.
Started at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So one of our new coworkers this summer went around the farm market and figured out that in August there were 38 CIC connected businesses at the farmer's market this summer. So just go through the farmer's market and you can find a bunch of them.
Awesome.
LG's Elixir.
Leslie Gourdet.
Yeah.
A soccer coach and a musician.
Exactly. Who had this, who finally figured out where he gets all of his energy from is from his elixir, and so he's another one. I mean, obviously you've interviewed Lee.
We interviewed him.
Was that interviewed Leslie?
Yeah.
But you mentioned Lee Elberson of Claiborne, Sarah. Sarah with Charlottesville Ballet, was another graduate. Just had the pie guy this morning, Keith Grooms, went through a program, and he started working in the business, bought part of it, was in our program, and we helped with a loan for him to buy the rest of it, so he's the full owner of it now. Seth Herman over at High Tour Gear Exchange. Peggy Donowitz at One Bridal Salon. There's just so many of them. The stories we like the most are not always necessarily the biggest businesses, but the individual who figures out a business that works for them, that helps them sustain their family, maybe hires an employee, from their community that can really help them grow. Because the businesses aren't just all the big brands, but they're also, the small individuals who are just working for themselves.
Bellamy Brown, your classmate at one time, joining us now. Welcome, Bellamy. Willie Broadus, the brewmaster. Welcome to the show from Richmond. Isaiah Brooks, I run into him all the time at ACAC, speaks so highly of the Community Investment Collaborative.
Cool.
I wish when I had launched this business in 2008, then I had known, now granted you guys weren't in operation then, but it was so lonely. I mean, I felt, the highs and lows, especially with an early stage business, even as the business grows, are monumental. I mean, you have the days where you feel like you're on top of the world and you're almost superhuman. And then you have the lows where you're like, man, this is brutal. And I'm working 70 hours a week in this building. We've had success. But having the community, almost like the support group, it's almost, what it almost reminds me of? It almost reminds me of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Where you go to a group and you can hear the trials and tribulations of your fellow peers, which you then leave the group feeling more inspired or more focused.
Yeah.
That whole topic to you.
Just talking. Absolutely. I mean, one of our programs with CIC is Small Business Circles. So when folks have been through our workshop, they have a launch business. We have 4 of them going at the moment. They're a monthly support group. They just get together and, they can complain about the employees that they have because they need a space to do that. They can talk about the challenges. They can figure out the whatever it is that's going on with them and so forth. But the core of what all of that is, and one of my our coworkers, our director of programs, Shannon Beach, talks about a lot, is folks need to find a place where they can be real with each other. It's not just about always talking about the success, but it's about talking about the challenges. And when you can actually open up and kind of be a little vulnerable and offer those, then things you build relationships, and 2,
you understand it's not unique to you.
It's not unique to you, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think a lot of folks discover as they go through CIC. And a lot of folks in all walks of life and all businesses, and you'd be surprised how many pretty big businesses, even in this town, they don't necessarily do the underlying business pieces all that well. Maybe they don't actually keep good records, or they don't manage parts of their finances, or the marketing is just they've just done well on word of mouth. But if they had that marketer behind them, who knows where they would go? And it's because they're often scared to say, "I don't know." I don't know what I need to do, or they think that because they've been doing it as long as they could, that they can't admit that they don't know something. But when you do, that kind of really empowers you to take that next step, to actually offer more, to get more from others, and to actually start to learn. And the folks who go the furthest with us in CIC are the ones who really kind of realize, hey, I don't know this, and try to figure it out or learn it enough that they can be the owner of the business and then hire someone else to help them with it.
You know what really irritates me about some of the media outlets covering entrepreneurship? Let's take CNBC. We'll take like The Profit, or we'll take a show like Shark Tank. These programs are glorifying entrepreneurship and almost conveying and turning it into this like rock star lifestyle, where it's like, things and shiny stuff and fast cars and opportunity and make your own schedule. And even on a micro level here, folks see the I Love CVille Show. The I Love CVille Show is such a small aspect of what we do. Before you came in here, I was on the 2nd floor in one of our office suites because our tenant texted us about a bathroom and a toilet leaking. And I'm literally up there in the bathroom with a plunger.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not like sexy. You know, it's like I take the effing trash out, 3 days a week, right?
Yeah.
I was here Thanksgiving morning. Like how with the CIC, when you get to that point with folks, especially like the first time business owners come in here, they're like, I'm going to start a business to make my own schedule, to make a lot of money, and to do what I want. Do you then say, nah, dude, slow, let's pump the brakes?
Yeah. I mean, like, everyone has their own motivations coming into starting a business, and a lot of them are that. I want to work for myself. I want to, I think I can make more working for myself than working for someone else. And we do a 2-hour how to start a business workshop with the Small Business Development Center and the SCORE chapter locally, and we cover that in the first 20 minutes of that workshop. You're interested in how to start a business. Why are you starting a business? Every reason that you have for starting a business that's a pro is also a con, because with it comes things like you're talking about, or things that you might not want to be doing. Everyone wants to, make the cogs in the machine, but no one wants to fix the machine. And that's like learning that that's what comes with kind of owning your own business, that there are a lot of things beneath that. And those are the things that in 90% of cases drive the success of the business. It's not that Jerry Miller is an incredible marketer. It's that he does all the things underneath it to execute it over in and out of a day.
Amen.
One of my former bosses, who was a wife of the first candidate whose campaign I managed, she had a theory of basic functional competence. Basically that 90% of what you do is just about following up with people. If you say you're going to do it by a certain time, and all those little things that have nothing to do with the content of what you do. It's just the execution. And there are people who aren't necessarily that good at the content, but have incredible businesses because they just can execute over and over and over again. And if you take that with
the process.
Yeah, the process
Yeah.
and the systems.
Yeah.
And if you take that mixed with people who are really talented, who do have, a real passion kind of for the actual content of it, and can make some really solid systems behind them, their businesses will thrive. And that's part of what, you need to work towards if you want to grow your business.
Do you have the conversation with entrepreneurs where it's like, guys, 80+% of small businesses fail in their first 3 years? The odds are stacked against you.
Yeah, I try not to, be
morbid.
You want to try to encourage people. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a kind of sinister side to myself that that type of thing. I like thinking of the worst case, because then everything's better from there.
That's what I do.
But it doesn't work for everyone else. I think probably some of my coworkers probably drives them crazy at times.
Because if you think of the worst case and you're like, this is the absolute worst that can happen, it gives you like a sense of confidence, because once you wrap your mind around the worst possibility, you realize, okay, that's bad, but that's not the end of the world for me.
Exactly, and that's how I view it. But that's a change in mentality that some folks it's harder for, and so I think you just have to help them figure out their vision, kind of get that goal of what they're working towards, and then work in those types of things along the way. Because when you're there's a lot of times in your business you have to decide whether or not to invest. Do I start the business at all? Do I invest in this new product or service? Do I hire this employee? And figuring out how to do that analysis to know the worst case helps you know if you're comfortable even doing it. But you have to learn it and you have to practice it. Just like every skill takes practice and time to grow.
Well, thanks some of the folks watching. First, let's give some love to Cameron Limousine. Guys, if you're looking for some transportation solutions, Cameron Limousine in Charlottesville is a good choice for you. Santos Fernandez loves what he's hearing right now. Courtney Craner. Marilyn Davis, Aaron Clenard, folks watching in Nashville, welcome Grace Australia to the program. Jeremy Ronica, Ray Jordan, Sandy Fuel, the automotive titan, hello. Charlottesville City Hall, welcome to the show. Talk to us about and it's a case-by-case basis. Every case is different. The mindset of bootstrapping a business versus the mindset of going to bank, getting some financing. Not everyone can do it. Depends on their balance sheet.
But we can help you if you can't.
You can. Or the mindset of taking like some outside angel investors. Let's say, we're not even going to talk about a private equity firm. Let's go angel investors, bank financing, which you guys offer, or bootstrapping here. How does that conversation work?
I mean, that's such a...
It's a broad question.
It's a broad question.
Yeah.
You're good at those. But you know, I try to, whenever any financing, whenever you're putting money in the business, it's a matter of what do you need it for? Are you trying to, to hire an employee? Are you trying to upgrade packaging? Are you trying to buy new equipment? All of those things. And, what gets you to the next step, or what are you going to need for the next several steps? That's where you start. Just like in business, we try to teach in CIC, you're not selling a product or service, you're, offering a solution to someone's problem. And so same thing goes when you're trying to grow your business and you're thinking about financing. What problem that when you solve it will get you to the next step in your business? And so is that a problem that's just, if it's a marketing problem, it's just, shoe leather and working hard. More money doesn't automatically solve it if you haven't figured out people actually want it yet. So more often than not, don't go borrow money or, take on an investor to find money for marketing. But if it's you're hand labeling all of your products, and for the packaging for them, and it's costing you $1.20 for every unit to do, and if you could buy 50,000 units of that package and get down to 20 cents. Yeah. You could borrow money to buy 50,000 units and still actually, use that to get equipment and something to improve efficiency or increase the capacity of your business. And that's a loan CIC would do. And if you've been in business 2 years and have good credit score and collateral, it's a business a loan a bank would do. So those are the difference there. Debt versus equity is just about, who's taking the risk and who's getting the reward. So when you're borrowing, whether it's from a bank or a microlender like CIC, you're taking the risk because you're still going to owe the money if the business doesn't work. But and you know exactly how much that debt's going to cost you because it's the interest rate, and the reward, if you do well, is all yours. Whereas taking on an angel investor or any investor, whether it's friends, family, angels, anything else, it's they're going to give money, but they want to share in that upside, and that's not a bad thing. It's just you're giving up some of that ownership and some of that upside for potentially more capital, for potentially more flexibility in the capital. So those are the things coming into play, but you have to start with, what do I need the money for at all?
This conversation hits close to home. We're 11 years in with this business. Bootstrapped the whole damn thing. And it was brutal, especially in the early years.
But now it's all yours.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with. Is like now in retrospect, I feel like it was one of the best decisions ever. But in the middle of doing it, as you know, I mean, it was like lonely and vulnerable and terrifying and keeping me from sleeping. All these things that had such a health impact. But in retrospect, one of the best decisions ever made. Where I'm going with this is CIC as a micro lender. First, how did you guys even consider getting into the lending space or solution? And then the second thing is, why even take on a risk of being a lender as opposed to just being educational infrastructure and support, which is, let's be honest, is a much safer realm.
Yeah. Well, the microloan program was the idea of CIC. That's how it started. So Tuan Nguyen owned CVille Coffee. His original idea, 2011, coming out of the recession, a lot of banks had really tightened the amount of small business lending they were doing. Had a little trouble accessing working capital. He said, if it's this hard for me, how hard is it for other folks who have fewer resources to begin with? People who haven't been in business 2 years, maybe didn't go to Darden, maybe don't the credit's not as great as it could be, don't have the collateral, all of those things, and started exploring creating a microloan fund. Discovered there had been 3 previous funds in Charlottesville in the last 30 years at that point that hadn't sustained.
Why not?
the big three lessons from those programs were they didn't have a significant business education component to help people develop business knowledge and skills. They didn't have significant ongoing assistance for after the loans were made to kind of support you as you took those next steps. And actually, the risk part is really hard. In a couple of cases,
they picked the wrong.
They just took too much risk. They didn't kind of figure out how to manage it well. And in one case, they weren't taking enough risks, and they weren't doing any loans a bank wouldn't do, so why do you exist at all? So all of that came together to form CIC. The reason we exist, the reason those loans are there is because it is still hard to access capital. If you don't have a 650 credit score, if you haven't been in business 2 years, it's virtually impossible to get a small business loan that's not a credit card or putting up equity in your home. And that's not a business loan, that's just a personal loan. So we exist because of a market failure where the banks aren't able to serve.
You're filling a gap.
Yeah, if the banks could do it profitably, they would. But since they can't, we exist, and we can't do it profitably ourselves. We rely on community support to make it possible, but we do the loans. And so, in our first 6 years until late January 17, we did 240,000 loans total. In 2018 alone, we did about 170,000, and this year we did 400,000 in loans. Oh. So we've really exploded on the loan program. That's in part because of partnerships with the city and the Business Equity Fund that Councilor Bellamy kind of spearheaded and supported. So they funded it in $150,000 that we are able to lend to minority-owned businesses. But a number of other funds, Albemarle County, Fluvanna, and other sources allowed us to do those loans and to take risk. And it's not that all businesses are risky, right? Most businesses will not last 5 years. But to take risk for individuals who experience lots more barriers in accessing capital than you or I might, and to actually give them the chance to succeed. So whether that's a small $5,000 loan or a $30,000 loan, get them out the door, get them in business 2 years, build that history, do it well, so then you can walk into the bank when you need that $50,000 or $100,000.
Do you think Charlottesville, and give us the nitty-gritty answer here, okay? Do you think Charlottesville is a good community for launching a business, running a business, taking it from idea to market, gaining share, gaining momentum?
Oh, I think it's a great community for that because there's a lot of support around you, not just because of CIC, but because
you got the talent at UVA.
Yeah, the talent at UVA, but also like you have. While there's significant challenge related to equity in this community, both on kind of income as well as race, there's also big markets for a relatively small region. And so on one side, that's a really good thing and creates a lot of opportunity for you to connect to it. A big anchor institution like UVA buys a lot of services. You build a business that you could get into. You could have a business just at UVA, even before diversifying, plus the city and others. But then the other challenge is because of the wealth and kind of how fast the place is growing, affordable housing is a challenge here. The business companion to affordable housing is affordable commercial rents. You're probably aware of this, being a property manager and so forth yourself, that the market rent rate here is higher than for just about anywhere else outside of Northern Virginia. And that makes it hard for the new business to get started. How do I get a small retail shop? How do I get an office space when I'm having to pay 2 or 3 times what I might pay if I went to Waynesboro or Stanton? But Waynesboro and Stanton, the market is smaller. So if I need customers coming in, maybe I don't get enough volume there for it to work. So it's good for business in the sense that there's a lot of support, but there's a lot of challenges that make it, you have to jump through higher hurdles or hoops to actually be successful.
You talk about using business and your God-given abilities to make the world a better place. You said that earlier in the interview. So a lot of ways, a social entrepreneur or a conscious capitalist, you embody those qualities. Give us some insight into why that mindset. I mean, we very much are focused on running a business in the black. Very focused. We know if we run a business in the black, he buys a home, which he did.
Yep.
We give raises. We keep the lights on. But if we keep a business running in the black, we're also able to do in 11 years roughly 115,000 in donations. So social entrepreneurship is important to us, especially in a small town like Charlottesville. The question I have for you: why social entrepreneurship? Why conscious capitalism? How do those qualities embody what the CIC is all about? And then I'm going to take that as a springboard into where I see Charlottesville going with Joffrey Woodruff across the way, who I have respect for, building Code, the Center for Developing Entrepreneurs on the downtown mall, and seeing this community evolving into this tech hub of what's going to be deep-pocketed, tech-focused entrepreneurs that I think are going to raise the cost of living, raise the cost of housing, drive the cost of office space up to a point where there's going to be an aspect of our community that is not going to be able to afford to live here. Let's put that one to a side for now and talk social entrepreneurship and conscious capitalism for you personally and CIC.
Yeah, so I mean that is the heart of CIC is we're about helping others succeed, but we're a nonprofit. We're our support is based on philanthropy largely. Only 10% of our revenue is earned revenue, tuition on our workshops or interest on our loans. Everything else is grants or philanthropic support. We exist because of market failures. If people could afford to pay for the business education we provide at market, they would, but they can't, or at least a big segment of our population can't. And so we want to help make that more accessible so more people can actually join in the success of a growing region. And so with projects like a lot of the development that's happening around town, that development at its heart is good. We want to be growing. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? But it's a matter of making sure that as a community, we choose to grow in a way that everyone can grow. That folks aren't left behind in that process, that people can participate in the economy, that there will be short-term barriers where rents go sky high, but can we alleviate some of those barriers in some creative business approach, or does it need to be some type of government intervention? And that mix of the two and the interplay to make sure that as few people as possible, if you can't make it none, are left behind and can fully participate and benefit from our growth.
Where do you see Charlottesville going? How do you see Code impacting the community? How do you see Joffrey's $125 million donation to UVA for a data science school impacting Charlottesville?
Well, I probably beyond my ability to kind of figure out what that's going to do, but I think a lot of the technology investments and companies, I think in general, are going to be net positives in the long run.
Why do you say that?
Because,
more jobs,
kind of more, creativity, more interest. There's a lot of interest in entrepreneurship. And I think as long as that entrepreneurship isn't only focused on narrow parts of the economy, that it's broadly implemented so that all of those growing businesses actually support other businesses that are local, that are already here, so that as few possible businesses and individuals have to leave this community. How do we keep them here?
I love that.
Because and that's hard. And that will be, it'll be some painful decisions along the way, and there'll be some short-term decisions that actually that set us back. And then there'll be decisions that we kind of take towards in a democracy and a community, any community, you're constantly give and take of a few steps forward and a couple steps back, and hopefully in general, you keep moving forward, but that's hard, and it requires kind of some diligence and some good people who care about those things to constantly be involved.
We talk a lot on this show of kind of the future of Charlottesville, because it means a lot. And since I watched my wife birth our son, and she's a rock star, I've wanted more than ever for our little boy to grow up in a super diverse and eclectic community, and not necessarily a community that's, say, like Palo Alto or San Francisco, much more like an Austin in Texas. It's the crossroads between going toward an Austin and then going toward a San Francisco. It's not a lot of steps for going down one path to the other. And I worry, and I'm just going to throw a topic, you go anywhere you want. I worry as a dad, it's a tough crossroads for me personally, because as the owner of an advertising agency, you want the community to be as robust as possible from its economy. You want deep-pocketed individuals, deep-pocketed business owners. You want people that can afford your rates, right? So you can continue to grow. But as a father, which has superseded me as a business owner, I want my kid to grow up in this diverse community. Where I'm going with this is, as a dad, I worry that we are heading down the path of a San Francisco and not the path of an Austin. Like a Paul Beyer wants with the Tom Tom Festival to be Austin-esque. Perhaps other folks maybe want more the San Francisco path. Throw that entire topic to you.
I mean, the Austin path, the San Francisco path, they all mean slightly.
Have you thought about this?
I mean, I know generally what you're referring to in those because, certainly kind of familiar with those communities and challenge. But I think let's stop trying to be someone else and figure out who we are and be better them.
Good answer there.
And that's really hard too, because even then you're going to shorthand and say, well, I want this like Austin and this like Boulder and this, like that. But in the end, we're still a unique community with a unique history. And depending on what room you're having that conversation in, you're going to get very different answers.
Ooh, I want to hear that. What do you mean by that?
Are you talking about it in a kind of business networking environment? Or are you talking about it in the hallway outside of city council chambers? Or are you talking about it, at a event in Crozet? Right? All of them are going to have slightly different answers and takes on what that is and what that means. And you kind of have to listen to each other long enough to actually understand what those there are commonalities among them. It's just that there's often not trust across different groups and kind of different interest enough to kind of have the conversation to get to that common vision.
I feel like you guys are helping create those bridges or build that trust with CIC.
I mean, I would hope so. I would say our workshop, our 16-week program is probably one of the more diverse rooms of adults you'll find, in the community who are all working to kind of realize their own dreams, but they come from different, parts of the community, come from different backgrounds and have, lots of different challenges, but they also all have the shared challenge of how do I make this dream a reality of their business. And one of our former board members with CIC used to run the iLab, and I would talk about the barriers a lot of our clients face in starting businesses. If you're an African American, it can be harder to access credit. Women, up until the late 70s, needed a husband to get a credit card. Ridiculous, right? And then wasn't all that long ago, and some of those barriers we're still feeling consequences of. But I mentioned, our folks experience a lot of additional barriers, and he worked with, students at Darden who are in the iLab, and he was like, well, tell me about the different challenges. And as we talked through them, they all experience the different challenges. It's just the opportunity cost or the calculation that they're making is different. A student in the program at the iLab who's trying to grow a business, that business has to be wildly successful for them to give up the potential job that they would have after getting their master or MBA, right? Whereas the same business started by someone from a different walk of life.
Could be a lifestyle business.
It could be a lifestyle business that is exactly what they want. In our program, we talk two people can look at the exact same business, and one says this is worth the risk, and one says I'm not touching this. And it's the exact same business. So it's the goals you have and what you're trying to accomplish that determine that. And I think that perspective, and once you realize that everyone has different goals, you can actually find opportunities, to make different things happen.
A lot of comments and questions coming in on this topic. This one's from James Watson. He says, have you had many students benefit from gaining SWAM status or gaining opportunities as a vendor for UVA?
Yes, I mean we work both with we both help with this. The city of Charlottesville's Office of Economic Development helps with this, as well as
is that Holly Lee?
Holly Lee and her team are there, and the helping people get both registered with procurement, whether it's City of Charlottesville or the state, both registering as a small women or minority-owned businesses, a SWAM business, and then helping them. It's not just registration, but how do you actually go after business? UVA is a huge institution, and how you actually just because you're registered doesn't mean you automatically get it. You still have to market within UVA. And so we certainly work to help connect people to places that can get that help, and folks who've been successful, getting them to share what's worked for them.
This is from Robert. What are some of the challenges entrepreneurs that are coming through CIC of color versus entrepreneurs that are white are facing? The differences.
I mean, CIC is not a bubble away from the rest of the world, right? And I think entrepreneurs of color, the barriers don't go away because of CIC. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we can help, kind of overcome a few of those, but they're still there. And we try to be cognizant of, hey, where are we reinforcing those barriers, mm-hmm. and where are we actually helping overcome them? And we're a pretty small institution, so we probably have less of an ability to actually tear them down, because that's a whole other, thing altogether. But how do we being aware of, like, hey, when are we actually kind of making it harder unnecessarily? When how we think about risk with our loans. The way banking and kind of traditional lending thinks about risk, you have to look at a number of different segments, and we look at those, but which one of those are kind of systematically holding back one set of the population, and can we do things to address that? I don't know where all the places are that we're not addressing, where we may still be reinforcing those barriers, but I think we're working to figure out more of them and help keep moving the needle little by little.
Ava from Little Planet says you are absolutely amazing and awesome. Thank you, Ava, for watching the program. Throw this to you. I want to think that I'm self-aware enough to realize that when I'm launching a business 11 years ago and securing clients, realizing that I have a leg up over fellow entrepreneurs that may be, Hispanic or African American. I go into meetings in those first couple years when there's no proof of performance. And I'm literally doing this with them and trying to build the rapport, confidence, and relationship to secure their business. And I'm speaking with folks that look like me, whether it's male or female, oftentimes white. I understand that this is, especially in the early stage of the company. Now we've proven it. We've proven the model. Early stage, no proof of performance. That they look like me. Maybe that there's this inherent trust that I'm not even considering. It would be tough for me to even understand the challenges that someone that would be my contemporary with the exact same skill set as me in the early stage of a business that's either Hispanic, African American, a minority of some kind, that's having this conversation with somebody, and whether that level of trust is there. So I guess what I'm going with this is like, I want to truly champion all businesses, all entrepreneurs, because I know how hard it is. I especially want to champion and put on a pedestal businesses that are run by women, businesses that are run by minorities, and businesses that are run with folks that don't have the economic means that perhaps other entrepreneurs that are launching their business do. You, like me, an advertising agency is essentially confessional for entrepreneurs. I hear the good, bad, and ugly 5-6 meetings a day, 6 days a week. Okay, probably same with you, where you're sitting across from entrepreneurs, hearing the good, bad, the ugly of what they have going on here. Throw the entire topic to you. First, the topic
You're good at that, just the whole.
Well, I try to make it safe and let you go anywhere you want. The topic of the challenges that, say, someone who's a white male may face versus the challenges that, say, a black female may face with launching their business and accessing capital.
I mean, it has been easier for me to do my job and build CIC because of both the privilege I have and the access to privilege I have. CIC's, board and supporters are folks who have privilege in the community, and they each give to CIC for their own reasons. But I think at least in part of it is about how do we either break down that privilege some or extend, at least in the short term, extend more of that privilege to more people, and while that is not a long-term solution to do it that way, let's make it so that the privilege isn't there, but at least in the short term, helping more people along the way while working on the longer term part of it. And I think that is what we, try to do. CIC has 4 pillars: education, mentoring, financing, and networking. The networking piece is about, what you were just saying. Like, can we help folks get into a room they wouldn't have been able to get into otherwise, and have that chance to kind of, I hadn't actually heard that acronym before, proof of
performance, a PUP. That's an advertising acronym.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one before. I've heard a lot of the jargon.
It's like the
years.
KPI, key performance. You know that one.
I know that one. Yeah. But that proof of performance, how do you get someone that opportunity to provide that proof?
Yeah.
And
because that's hard.
That is so hard.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to vouch.
It's like a chicken and an egg.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that it requires that, but also even if privilege didn't exist, people still go with people they know, right? And a lot of very small businesses, probably even yours, even though yours has grown, quite a bit, it's just as much because they know and like you as it is what you do. And
100% on that. You're selling yourself.
Exactly. And all of our businesses, the brand is the person, right? And so you need to be able to, and your personal brand is your ability to execute and follow through and so forth. But people don't know that until they've actually had the experience. And so we're trying to help more folks get that opportunity. And if they deliver a good product and perform well, kind of my dream and vision for all of this is, the only limits to your business should be your ability to deliver something that people want and do it well, not any of the other crap that we have, in society. And that's like, probably not going to be realized in
our lifetime,
but
probably not in our kids' lifetime.
But let's keep moving towards it. So.
That is the best answer I've ever heard on that topic. No BS. That was so good. How much of it, when you're having this conversation with entrepreneurs, is about personal brand, especially in the era of the ubiquitous nature of these, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn?
Well, our class that we do about branding is about personal brand.
Yeah.
Because awesome. It's less about the, this behind here
as
and the logo.
And
is it about like, when someone calls my business, do they hear back in 10 minutes, an hour, or 24 hours? What's the expectation and do I deliver on it? Some businesses, it's fine to respond within 24 hours. It's not, you don't have to respond within a few minutes. Some businesses, if you do a lot of business through one of the online
we respond in less than an hour.
Yeah, if you do with online platforms like home services type businesses and so forth,
you've lost it.
If you don't respond on your app within 10 minutes, you've lost it.
Yeah.
And you need to decide, is that the business you want to be in, or if you want to be in a slightly different space. But what's the expectation for the market you want to be in, and can you deliver it consistently? My friend Quentin Harrell, who owns Heritage United Builders, has been a longtime volunteer of CIC. They've done some work for us in
New Hill Development Corps.
Yeah, Quentin's on the board. Yolanda's the executive director, and Yolanda's a CIC graduate as well. Both kind of longtime supporters and part of CIC's network. But Quentin with Heritage United Builders, the thing I appreciate most, they did both times CIC's office has expanded in the last couple of years. They did the work for it. And the best testimonial I can give Quentin, beyond the high quality work they did, was, so the first day they were supposed to start doing the construction in our office. Knew they were going to be coming that day and getting started. It was going to take a few weeks. 9 a.m. on the dot comes to get a phone call from them. Hey, Stephen, just wanted to let you know, we're not going to be in there until 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. Just didn't want you to wonder where we were. See you then. Like, contractors don't have a great reputation for that communication and that execution piece, right? That is that kind of basic functional competence part. And that communication kind of, gave him his website has that testimonial on it right now. And like, I say that to other people because contractors, you might do incredible carpentry, but if you say you're going to be here today and I'm wondering where you are half the day, even if you show up during the day and get it done on time, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And that
Irritates
peace
the
of
hell out
mind
of
and
me.
and that's really valuable for people, so that is the kind of the piece that, is really important.
We got some more questions coming in. You've crushed it. We're 58 minutes in.
Okay.
This question is about the restaurant category. Steven, I'm thinking about launching a restaurant. However, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that Charlottesville has a ton of restaurants. Do you think I should consider pivoting my idea to something different besides a brick and mortar?
Without knowing, the food, who you are, all those things, one, we try hard at CIC when people apply for a workshop to not evaluate the business, because hopefully we teach you how to figure out the market and make decisions for yourself about how to pivot within the market. And so, the downtown mall works here because in most restaurants on the mall like it when another restaurant opens, because it means
more foot traffic
coming. Where are you going to operate, somewhere, if it's another part of the community, does that work there? There's a few places. Stonefield has tried to recreate that some. 29 has its share. It really depends on what field you're in and, what's your competitive advantage.
What do you think is the most competitive category in Charlottesville? I think it's got to be either, and we represent a lot of these, restaurants, real estate agents, coffee shops, a subset of restaurants. I mean, you look everywhere, and there's a coffee shops. Most competitive categories you're seeing in this community? Because there's something to be said not launching a business in an already saturated category.
For sure, although kind of knowing when it's saturated is really hard.
Touche.
Because, sometimes it's great. Sometimes it can be harder to be the first in a category.
First to market gets slaughtered.
Exactly, and it's because someone comes behind and does it just a little bit better, and you
watches you make the mistakes and improves it.
Exactly, and so I don't know if I have kind of strong thoughts on kind of which industry would be there. I would say, any industry where it's not that hard for someone else to just start doing it and get there, it's going to be competitive.
Holly Lee, welcome to the program. Big fan of you, Holly Lee. Steven was giving you some props too here. Throw this to you. Charlottesville city government. I've found good working relationship with Charlottesville, with running businesses and my clients as well. I mean, you have especially post 812, you have folks that have said, let's boycott supporting Charlottesville. And these are folks that may live in Albemarle, Fluvanna, or Orange. And when I directly respond to the folks that say this, whether it's at a cocktail party or happy hour or on this show or on social media, I said, the success that you have, first I say, do you own a home in Albemarle? You own a home in I do too,
Yep.
right? I say, you're saying, let's boycott Charlottesville, yet own a home in Albemarle. Do you realize that you are literally impacting the value of your home? The success of Charlottesville, as we both know, the success of Charlottesville has a trickle-over effect, everything from the outer county in Central Virginia. How have you seen the community respond from a business standpoint, from an emotional sentiment standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, pre and post A12?
I mean, it was I know a lot of downtown businesses and so forth had a rough year, in the year after, and I think this year is shaping up to be a pretty good one. One of our graduates bought Alakazam Toy Store earlier this year, and so it's her first holiday season with it there, and I think it's doing well. But I think I just back it out to the kind of larger question. I absolutely agree. The more we think about Charlottesville and Albemarle and even surrounding counties as different entities as opposed to really one shared kind of community and region, the harder things are, and we need to figure out ways to work more together and to think about more opportunities to share resources and kind of think kind of on one set of goals. It's incredibly hard within each of those communities, much less across them. But we'll be stronger in the long run when we do, because that shared success. People don't just like Charlottesville for downtown mall. They like for all of the kind of outdoor recreation and opportunities and breweries and wineries you can find in Albemarle and Nelson and Greene and elsewhere. So they all fit together. And if we think of them separately and make too many decisions with them separately and independently, we're going to lead to more conflict, which then makes it harder to have make better decisions.
Totally agree with that. 2 more questions for you, mindful of your time here. Jerry, we're watching at Crozet Pizza. Love the show. Try to watch as much as possible. Can you ask your guest if he sees an emerging industry or business that is kind of under the radar that he thinks is going to take off in the next couple years?
Yeah, people think of me as sometimes have insight on all these things. I don't know that I always do because we work kind of one by one with so many. I don't know that there's necessarily an answer to that. There's probably some in there that are kind of beyond where CIC serves. The higher tech sectors and growth, biotech, those type of things that I have like virtually no insight on. I can sound smart for about a minute or two, but if you ask me another question, I'm done. So outside of I think. I don't think I have an answer.
I think I'll throw one out there. I think anyone who's building models around SaaS, subscription as a service, I think is going to have some success where you offer some value proposition at X amount of dollars a month, and then you give them a premium ladder where they can climb. I have some clients doing that. I want to close on this note here. The short and long-term goals of Community Investment Collaborative, how it's going to further entrench itself in the community.
Well, we've constantly focused about growing our program around the challenges that we see from the clients we're already serving. We try to make sure that we serve certain target communities, African Americans and other kind of people of color, women, individuals who
underserved,
or individuals who have come from lower income households, and individuals returning to the community after serving time in prison. Those are kind of our 4 target populations. We're not exclusive to any of them, but we try to serve there. And amongst those clients that we see, what are the challenges they can face? Record keeping and those pieces one. So we have a financial management program that we've developed. So what are the challenges they see? And then as they continue to grow, how do we continue to help them as they grow? Whether that's making sure they connect to already existing services in the community, like the Small Business Development Center, to, for those who are really looking for outside capital, how do they prepare themselves for, to pitch the angel network? All of those types of things. So we want to keep focused on helping them, knowing that more and more people will come into the program already with the workshop and the entry points we have, but we want these businesses to sustain and survive as long as the owner wants to. We want, if they go out of business, we want it because they're going out of business for a better opportunity, not because the business wasn't working. And so how do we get more folks to that? And knowing that some businesses won't work, those folks hopefully will be better employees for the next thing that they do, or the next idea that they have, they'll be better positioned to be successful with it.
I love it. This was fun. Yeah. I respect your passion. I feel it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
For joining us.
Can I throw out a pitch real quick?
Oh, anything.
So for folks who are in us, our workshop applications are available right now. They're due January 3rd, so it's a 16-week entrepreneur workshop. Takes 5 minutes to apply, and then we'll meet with you in January, and that workshop will start in February. So if folks are interested, please apply online at our website.
On the website. Okay, yep. Fantastic. Guys, I have heard so many good things about CIC. We've had a lot of the entrepreneurs on the show, and this organization is genuine and authentic and informative and educational and just fantastic. I feel like Charlottesville is very lucky to have Stephen Davis and his team in the community. We will take today's show, for those that are just tuning in or tune in midway through, and archive it on ilovecville.com. Judah, our director, will take the audio from the show and turn it into a podcast, and we'll do that by close of business today. We'll syndicate today's show and Stephen's appearance for 30 days across our network, 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, an e-newsletter that goes out every morning at 11 a.m. to roughly 118,000 inboxes. We have the 3rd largest Instagram community in Central Virginia. What we're trying to do with the show is do our small part of spotlighting people that are doing impactful and influential and positive things for our community. That's the whole premise of the I Love CVille Show, is to feature the best of Charlottesville, Virginia. We close the program with the same message every time. We ask everybody that's watching to please embody the golden rule. Anybody in your life, treat them how you want to be treated yourself. Charlottesville needs the golden rule, the Commonwealth needs the golden rule, and I'm telling you, the country needs the golden rule more than ever. I'm Jerry Miller. It is the I Love CVille Show on the I Love CVille Network. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the program.
Of course.
It was great.
Great to be here. Yeah, absolutely.
Got one more thing to do. We're going to take the hero picture.